there is a far stronger relationship between mental health, or the absence of it, and money than anybody really wants to talk about. I think it's fascinating that we would consider this to be a novel conversation when, in my opinion, it should be that conversation.
But the number of times that I've, laid awake or I've had panic attacks, because of money, it's very, very serious. And, I don't know if there's any studies, and maybe my team should do one, or we should do it together, Tracy, on, PTSD from financial stress.
I think almost all stress right now is tied somehow to money. I think the world has become so lopsided in its ideas about the importance of money and the importance of people who have money and the lack of importance for people who don't.
Hi, and welcome to the Mental Health Show with Robert Grigore. I am your host, Robert Grigore. If you are new to the channel, to the show, this show is about destigmatizing mental health and debunking popular myths out there to help our dear audience save time, money, and really a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering. And each time I have a guest on the show, I'm bringing somebody that's extremely experienced in some area of our world. And today is no different. I'm so excited to have this guest on the show. I'll tell you a little bit of backstory in a minute. But I really want to, say how excited I am for having you here. So Tracy's going to be my guest. I'll give her an intro in a moment. But their story is many years ago now, about 10 years ago, I was an outreach worker at the Salvation Army in the downtown east side, which, if you're not aware, was, or maybe still is, the poorest postal code in all of Canada. And Tracy comes down and she does this beautiful presentation for a group of us, and helped a lot of people with a lot of financial literacy. And it was just so humbling and so honoring, to see her there sharing her heart and all of her wisdom. It was it really touched me, as I'm almost tearing up this many 10 years ago, so. Anyway, I can't wait to have her on the show. I'm going to give you an intro. It is a long one, so bear with you because she's very accomplished. So Tracy Theemes is a financial advisor and co-founder of Sophia Financial Group, an investment advisory firm serving high net worth individuals, while also dedicating one day a week for pro bono work for those in need of financial advice. And I think that might be us today. So thank you for having us. For 15 years, she has led the Sophia Wealth Academy, a one-day education event and fundraiser for Dress for Success, which is so cool. Tracy is the co-host of the podcast Wise Money Moves, known for its humorous and engaging take on managing money, relationships, and power. And that is on my my list right now, and I'll link it down below too, so people can share and learn from you as well. She holds an MA in counseling psychology, a master's of counseling psychology, which is also very exciting for me. And she's conducted doctoral work in child psychology at UBC and is a certified financial planner, insurance licensed, and fellow of the Canadian Securities Institute. I'm not done. Tracy's accolades go on and on. So UBC Education alumni, 100 Award for Community Leadership and Financial Literacy, which is very amazing. She's nominations for the YWCA Women of Distinction Award in Business and the Professions and the BIV Influential Women in Business Award. Still not done. Hang on there. The International Alliance of Women Global 100 Award for Empowering Women Through Education. That's amazing. And she's the author of The Financially Empowered Woman, which earned bronze in the Living Now Awards for finance and economics, gold in the Axiom Business Book Awards for personal finance. And if you go to her LinkedIn profile, you'll see a beautiful photo there with the emblem TED in the bottom right. So I can only imagine that you have also spoken on that stage. So to have you on my stage is a great honor. Tracy, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited. What kind of trouble can we stir up today?
Oh, I have lots of questions, so we'll see here. Okay, so I think people, the audience that are tuning in, are obviously understanding that we're going to talk about finances today. And I think that, there's, in my work, I've seen quite a bit of stress when it comes to finances. And I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to bring this conversation to the forefront. I don't hear many people talking about the intersection of mental health and finances. So this is our opportunity. Okay, so let me ask you sort of a question here about how does financial stress impact a person's mental health and vice versa? What have you seen?
Well, it's iterative, right? So if you have financial issues, of course it's going to stress you out. And if they're chronic, then that just becomes a constant, taker of your energy and of your focus, and of your peace of mind. And then, of course, if you start out with any type of mental health challenge, whether it's a diagnosis or whether it's situational, of course that's going to affect your relationship with money. There is a far stronger relationship between mental health or the absence of it and money than anybody really wants to talk about. I think it's fascinating that we would consider this to be a novel conversation when, in my opinion, it should be that conversation.
Agreed. The number of times, I'll share some of my story as well, but the number of times that I've, laid awake or I've had panic attacks, because of money, it's very, very serious. And, I don't know if there's any studies, and maybe my team should do one, or we should do it together, Tracy, on, PTSD from financial stress, bankruptcies, consumer proposals, things like that, or just constant, not having enough. Well, what are some of the most common, financial behaviors that you find that kind of contribute to anxiety or depression or
Mental health, so financial behaviors.
yeah.
How about we look at it first from like perspectives? Let's look at the ideas that we have, the narratives that we carry in our head. Since to me, that's inextricably entwined with our behavior, right?
Yes.
And I believe that now maybe I'm prejudiced, and we'll just grant that that's a possibility, but I think almost all stress right now is tied somehow to money. I think the world has become so lopsided in its ideas about the importance of money and the importance of people who have money and the lack of importance for people who don't. This is new. This wasn't like this 25 years ago, right? Before we were more integrated. We were more all in this together. And the rich folks were there, but they were a little embarrassed by being rich. Now they're not. And poor people, it was just like, oh, they're either down on their luck, but somebody would help them out in their community or in their neighborhood. And it was considered something that wasn't a failure. It wasn't a human value failure. It was a situation. Now, it's like if you don't have money, you yourself are considered a failure, at least to ourselves. So as long as we make money the determinant of our value to ourselves and to our society, we're going to have increasing amounts of dis-ease about it, of pathology about it, because we're all trying to escape. Well, how do you escape? It's a prison, right? If you feel people are judging you because you don't have money, or you've got something going on in your life that's so distracting and so emotionally engaging, that's affecting your relationship with money. It's just like, I think it becomes this overwhelming, like a wall that you can't get through. And one of the biggest things that I see here is the sense of futility. And what's the worst, to me, one of the worst things to experience as a human being is the sense that nothing I do and nothing I say can get me ahead and make me feel better. And that I think describes a large percentage of the population right now with regard to their finances. I hear more of it than when I started my career 25 years ago. I did not hear this continuing sense of hopelessness. So that, to me, is probably the biggest inflammation of mental unwellness. And that then becomes very iterative, because then you can't escape, right?
That's huge. We've got this myth already that you're busting right now for us. The sense that there is this idea that we have to have money in order to have some sort of value, and then if I don't, then that means that I'm somehow worthless.
Yes.
Or I'm somehow
deficient.
not worthy. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really debilitating. I mean, we can't deny, of course, that money, in my opinion, is a basic necessity. You need it to buy food, water, shelter, all the things on Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
It's right there in the basic needs. So, do you? I mean, but should you feel worthless or valueless if you don't have any? I don't think so. I think that's really a sad thing that I think is out there, and it's only getting worse with social media, and all of the pedestals that we put, these people on.
Also, it is the effects of the ongoing march of capitalism, right? Because as capitalism continues, wealth, it's a game, right? Where at first everything's equal and everybody participates equally. But then with continued, as you win a few, then the wind goes to your back. So now wealth is contained in fewer and fewer families' hands in this world, much fewer. And the discrepancy between those who have it and those who don't has massively split apart. Whereas in the town where I grew up, a farming community, the rich and the poor were not really that far separate. The rich folks got to go to Florida at Christmas time with the kids, and maybe they had a really fancy camper. But that was, and then the rest of us, we stayed home and baked brownies with our families, and went tobogganing and skating. But it wasn't the difference. We all partook of the same education pool. There were no private schools, so everybody was educated the same way, which meant they all played sports together, which we were a community. But now with money, that community gets segregated, and it becomes increasingly segregated by wealth. And that also means privilege gets contained. And there's no doubt that once you have money, it is so much easier to have more. It's ridiculous how easy, once you get money, it is to have that grow. The real tough piece is going from nothing, or from just sort of enough, the basic of enough, to the surplus. So that lack of attention to the unfairness, I think, also leads to that sense of desperation and the sense of why would I even try? Why would I even try? And we all know that that's the beginning of the unraveling of our sense of self-regard, our sense of that we're productive, constructive humans, that who we are matters. And as soon as we degrade that, right, then, of course, how can we be mentally healthy if that's degraded?
Wow. That's profound, Tracy. That's profound. Yeah. So I mean, so many of our clients, have a sense of purpose in the work that they do, and that really brings, meaning to lives, and I see when people, even if they're on, it doesn't matter which spectrum they're on, if they have very little, they have a lot. It's when they lose that sense of purpose, then there's a big gap, and there's a huge hit on mental health. And I deal mostly with trauma in my clinic. We deal with a lot of trauma, and I extend that definition to more than just like your car accidents or your sexual assaults or something, which are obviously traumatic. But it's any time your nervous system has felt overwhelmed, powerless, and there's some sense of danger. And I think all three of those things together really create the dynamic for financial stress to become traumatic. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. I think because it's a big deal, and maybe we can't have any big answers right now to how people can get, like you said, once they have some money, it's easier to keep going. Maybe we'll figure out a way to get there. But what are some other myths that you've seen that have sort of contributed to this sense of powerlessness that you're talking about? This sort of like the shame and the inadequacy and what else have you seen there?
So the first big myth to me is that we're all on the same path. We're not.
Yeah.
Like, frankly, Bill and Melinda Gates' children started from a very different place.
Yes.
Than the woman, Sophie, that I worked with on Thursday, whose mom was a drug addict and on welfare her whole life. They just simply started from different places. So the biggest discipline is not to be comparing myself to anybody else. I started where I started, and my journey is my journey. My values are my own values. My circumstances are my own circumstances. My opportunities, my challenges are uniquely mine. So the first ownership, the first place we'll recreate sufficiency is by recognizing that my path is uniquely my path. And my relationship with money is my relationship with money. So I don't have to be paying attention. I'm never going to be Melinda Gates. And I'm probably, God willing, never going to be drug addicted on welfare. I don't have it in me at this stage. I would really have to work hard to create that scenario in my brain. Not that it couldn't happen, but so it's me. The Tracy story is the Tracy story. And so as soon as I own that, then I've taken, to me, my first step of empowerment. And then the discipline becomes not looking at anybody else and just defining it for me and for my circumstances. You talk about trauma. I don't see much what I would call financial trauma. I see a lot of drama. But I did have what I would consider trauma a few months ago. A family that had left Syria, I believe it is, with, basically nothing. After having traveled, like some of the families that end up on this refugee track through war, and of course, you can't go through war without some trauma. And one of the things that happened is that no matter how hard they worked for their money, it basically was gone, right? They no longer had power over their money. You can only contain so much in an orifice. You can only go through so many refugee camps where it's gone. So when they came in here and were orienting themselves to Canadian banking system and finance system, they came in with a sense of depression and futility, and which is I'm normalizing this trauma, okay, using words that are less emotionally activating.
Sure.
So what are we going to do? They did not trust the banking system. They did not trust their ability to save money, and they felt that the system was against them. So my job is to find a way to override. We can always find a way to get to where we want to go. Now, the one thing they respected was debt. They didn't have debt, but they respected it. So I was like, okay, they're not going to save money, but they would pay something off. So it's the first time I've used an RSP loan. Because I knew that if they each put $5,000, borrowed it from the bank for an RSP, I know that these honorable people who don't believe in any system, but who honor trumps everything, would pay it off. And it's working. So we're overriding the trauma to find another way around to save that uses whatever their particular, idiosyncratic cognitive pathway is to hook up to the narrative that's uniquely theirs so that we can move ahead. So that's what I mean. We're not on the same path. I don't recommend it for anybody else, but for them, that was our way around it. The second myth, I think, is it's just never about the numbers. Money has nothing to do with numbers. It's an energy. It's a currency. So if it was just about the numbers, then $20 to somebody at the Vancouver Club who drops it out of their back pocket when they're getting up from a bar stool would mean the same as $20 lost at the corner of Main and Hastings to somebody that's hungry. And it doesn't. The $20 means something very different. We are always putting on money our own ideas of it and our own valuing of it. Somebody, if you have $10,000 in the bank, Robert, you may just go, I am the richest guy alive. Whereas some of my clients, if they got down to $10,000 in the bank, they would be having panic attacks at 3 in the morning. So it's not about the numbers, it's what we're attributing the numbers. And that's, again, an opportunity to own our own story. And the thing about numbers is, if we're not careful, if we're looking to the right or left and thinking somebody else's path is ours, then we're going to define numbers by a different value system than works for us. So the biggest path when we talk about people that get money, have more money, to me, this is because the energetic frequency that they're operating from is the frequency of sufficiency. All long-term positive change, in my experience, comes from a posture of sufficiency, not deficiency. Deficiency can get you, to not eat pizza for 3 days because you feel fat. Deficiency can get you not to overspend for 4 days. Deficiency can get you to keep your mouth maybe zipped when your annoying cousin, always talks about the wrong football team. But it's not a long-term process. So the disruptor for me, the working with it's not about the numbers, is to me establishing a path of sufficiency. So when I'm working, let's go back to the downtown east side, when I work with people for whom poverty is a chronic situation, I might have them take $5 and just tape it onto some surface, a fridge or a wall, and to stare at it and to go, I've got $5. And then I move them up to 20. And then we keep going and we just see, can we lift their sense of havingness and appreciation? And when we do that, and I have somebody, I've done this process now for, are you ready? 14 years. 14 years. She now has $20,000 in a TFSA, but it took 14 years, and we started with $20 on the fridge. And the interesting thing was, she came in just a very positive human being. She was living in a closet at the time, a friend's closet, to keep her from being homeless. And we had to work from a posture of sufficiency. What do you have? Well, I said, you got a roof over your head. I said, that's a pretty short roof, but it's a roof. I said, you can breathe. How's your breathing? You can breathe, okay? The air's clear. I said, when you drink water, it's clean. We moved way back for an appreciation of what she did have. And her biggest breakdown, I would say, she came in here sobbing one day. I was totally, oh my gosh, because this woman had been doing such good work. And she came in and I was like, okay, what's happened? And I'm thinking, she's been kicked out of the closet. She's on the street. Somebody's hurt her. No, she had saved $1,000. And I was like, okay. And she said, now I'm scared I'm going to lose it. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Because she's got that sufficiency. So that now, for the first time, the risk. She's coping with the risk of loss, right? So we had to work through that. That took almost 4 months. Because you can't get ahead, right, if you don't feel you can handle the risk of having. the loss of it. So
Wow.
that's why it isn't, my second myth is it's not about the numbers. This
My
is a
gosh.
far richer experience with money. And the
Wow.
third is that I would say is that people think that how they feel is correct. How you feel is valid, but it's not correct. I feel the market's going down. No, that's not a feeling. That's a thought. You know,
Yes.
I feel like I'm a piece of crap because, you know, I'm not sure if I have my rent. Yes, that feeling's valid, but the fact is that you haven't saved for your rent. So it's the distinction that money, although it's energy, if we're not careful, the leader of it should not be emotion. The
Amazing.
emotions can be respected, held, appreciated, and acknowledged, but they cannot lead the financial journey.
There's a couple of things that are really standing out to me. One of them, if I go backwards a bit here, is I've heard I read the bio. I looked like you're very accomplished. And what I find so amazing is that here you are talking about money as energy. And frankly, I don't think I've heard that very often from some of the clients. Let's just use clients that I work with. I work with some high net worth individuals, and some of them do, but most of them don't talk about it as money or as energy. Money as energy. And I think that's so valuable because it's an energy thing, but it's not like there's some sort of thing out here necessarily. I'm hearing you also talk about the beliefs that one carries within themselves and how things make them feel, and then checking that against what does the data show us as well. But also, I like this idea about when people have a thought, they have a feeling about something that is activating some kind of belief system within them that is taking then we feel that here. Belief systems aren't this sort of thing that happens out here. They're here and they're here. And to know that, when you have a sense about something, you feel deficient, right? Then there's activating probably a feeling of powerlessness or inadequacy. And there's a belief system that gets activated, probably like, I'm not worthy, or I'm a piece of shit, or whatever it is that you're thinking about yourself. And then you carry that around, and then you're going to be making probably poor decisions based upon that belief system and how you're feeling about yourself in the world. And what I love about what you're saying, I mean, so many things I love about what you're saying, is that you have these people that come in, and it seems like you work with a wide variety of people. Very, very high net worth individuals, and then people that have very, very little for most people comparison. And then to come in and you're having people with serious trauma, and what I loved about what you said is you are zeroing into the person and treating them as a human and understanding what this human being in front of me needs in order to get them to the goal that they need to get to. And this is a very different approach than what I would see like a standard wealth advisor at a bank or a mortgage broker or something like that, which are I love you all, but there's this little bit of it. There's this this is a human. There's all kinds of stuff going on here, and I think probably your mental health background and counseling probably plays a role. And I can tell your empathy is just sort of oozing out. I don't know if you can tell watching in on this, but the empathy I can just tell is incredibly high for you, and you must be really feeling some of this stuff for your clients and trying to find a way through to help them overcome some of these barriers, which is just amazing. So thank you for what you're doing. Wow. Sufficiency, that idea of what do I have right
And
now
work from there.
that I
Yes.
can be grateful for,
Yes.
appreciate. And that is huge. So
Yes.
that can be a very difficult thing for a lot of people.
It's the beautiful thing about my perspective is that I can retrain my mind. Anybody can retrain their mind. I can't change your situation right away. I can't change my situation right away. But I can always change my perspective on it. And there's no doubt that if you take a deep breath, and I'm so committed to a practice of sufficiency in my own life And I'm seeing that that's quite a disruptive. It's almost like you're a rebel now if you are talking about what's going well. If you're talking about how, how good things are for you, you're in the minority. I mean, we've become, the negativity bias is definitely, we've topped over to the other side.
Yep.
And I can't stay wealthy and grow my wealth if I go there. So, and I can't then be an example, a pillar, or a source of wisdom and peace if I go there. So my practice is, even on the darkest days, like I always know the sun's behind the clouds, right? It's never just the cloud. The sun's always there. And some days it's just, I'm really a good breather. Boy, the air is very clear today.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that clean air goes into my lungs. And wow, clean water came out of my tap. And once I start that, my whole body shifts. And when my body shifts like that, there's space. And as soon as there's space, there's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity for my mental well-being to improve. There's opportunity for me to change anything that I want to change, or simply to be happy with what I have. And the weird thing is that as soon as I'm happy with what I have, more of that happy comes.
Yes.
Over and over and over, I have seen how much control we actually do have. And all of these things are wound up in our relationship with money.
Amazing.
I think so too.
It sounds, I think probably people listening will attach law of attraction as what you're saying, and I'm not sure necessarily if those are the words you want to go with that, but it does sound like an amazing awareness of energy, of how you feel, and the mindset up here that of what is important for you. Your value system has to first, I think, say that I want to feel like this as much as possible, which this meaning appreciation, gratitude, excitement to some degree. And what I hear you saying is that even not every day is like that. You can't necessarily wake up and go, yes, I am, on top of the world, because life happens. And this is a stumbling block for a lot of people. Things are going really well. And then based upon earlier events, what I would consider trauma in people's lives, they might be thinking for the other shoe to drop. When am I going to lose? When's like your client? Like when am I going to lose it? There's that fear it's going to be taken from me somehow. And so to just notice it, and then maybe not like fight against it, but to just start on a new pathway, knowing that, okay, what can I be grateful about right now? Sort of like a shift, not on what am I unhappy about, and like talk about that with people, but just what can I be grateful about right now? What can I really appreciate? And then beginning from that. And I love that you said it can be as easy as, I'm grateful that I'm a good breather, or I am, have a roof over my head. It doesn't have to be, 20 stories up or 20 feet high ceilings, but I have a roof. It's, I'm warm. That's amazing. I have clean water. That's amazing. And I have to ask you, you have such a a respect for people, and such a appreciation and this clear empathy for what they're going through and desire to help. How did you get there? You're doing so many things for so many people that have so much less. Like why? Where did that come from for you?
I just did a whole values clarification exercise. I've been in a group now for 9 years of business people, and we're very successful business people, but we also believe that business isn't just business. We also do a lot of personal development work and spiritual work. It has evolved over 9 years to that. And we did a values clarification in November, and I changed all of my values. I shifted, and it was at the advice of one of the participants, they're called the forum, my teammates, who talked about, if you can't find a strong story aligning with your value, it's not a value, it's an intention. Value is something that you've lived by. I just feel and always have felt better in service. Like, I feel like I'm a Belgian peasant who just gets up every day with a basket and I'm just going to pick tomatoes down a row, turn around, get another basket, and pick tomatoes down the next row. Like, I come from very working class people. Work is honorable. Serving other people is honorable. Looking after those around us is honorable. My best days are always when I feel I've been of service. It is in and of itself. I don't need recognition for it. I don't need other people to have witnessed it. I just simply feel better when I look after other people. And I don't mean in a wussy, non-boundaried way. I just mean I think my soul came here to be of service. I think a lot of people's did. And I think we forget that sometimes. And then we get a little off track. And I also think that generosity, like, there's different energies that build wealth because it's energy. Generosity builds wealth. When you do something for somebody else, it is exactly in the same sort of like la la la, like in the same note group as wealth, right?
Amazing. Yes.
So when you're doing your show, and your show is to be able to bring information, knowledge, insight, support, and inspiration to people, you're doing it to be of service, but you certainly look happy about it. So the two things together, right, are you could get rich, but not because people give you money, but because the energy that you feel when you're doing this show is the same energy that calls in prosperity, calls in money. It's an opening. So, and that gets a little complicated. But for me, my antidote to despair is to go out and find somebody who needs some help and just do it. I keep my eyes open all day long. I help people across the street. Not because I'm like, oh, such a good person. I do it to feed the energy of the human that I want to be and to be in service of what I came here to do on the planet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not doing it for all those awards you won.
No.
You're doing it because in the moment it feels amazing for you.
Yes. But if you don't mind, I'd like to harken back. It's really important to me for your listeners. I don't want them to think that everything is a head game. There are people who are generally and systemically stuck in a state of poverty. And poverty and mental health, the lack of mental health, I think is a very complex and very difficult. I don't want anybody to think that I'm like, oh, just think happy thoughts and you won't be hungry today. And I don't want people to believe that if they're in the middle, of a schizophrenic break, that I expect them to do their bank balances today because that's what a responsible person does. It's a continuum. And you've got your own continuum, and I've got my own continuum. But also, the world has a continuum, and I want to be very respectful that most of the people that I work with have managed mental health issues, and most of the people that I work with are in some kind of normalcy. They mostly have a roof over their head. I am not still working on the downtown east side with people that are perpetually unhoused, who have addiction issues, who are sick, who have hurt gums because their teeth are falling. Some principles still work, but it is a very different, far more complicated situation that deserves more than some of these easier ways of coping that I'm explaining. I just need to give a nod in that direction.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're saying that too, because it's one thing to think and to feel well. That's an important part of it, but there's also, in my belief anyway, is that there's an action component to life. Like, we're living creatures, that we have, three-dimensional beings, and we have to do things within this world. And so sometimes that sounds like maybe you do nothing. If you're in the middle of a major episode, a mental health episode, the thing you should do is probably call your mental health provider, not, do your banking. but also like there's an even when you talk about me on the show, there's a service, there's a joy. I'm doing something. There's an action that's happening here, and I think I agree. I think that's really important, and but I think what you're talking about with this idea of poverty mentality is really critical because, think about the wealthy or the people that become wealthy overnight, the lottery winners, for example, and they win their lottery. Yeah, I'm rich, I'm wealthy. If they have a poverty mindset, how long is that actually going to last? Right? And maybe they don't come see you and they don't know how to manage their money. They don't take all the steps, that are actions that have to be done in order to, continue to build that. And I think there's statistics, I don't know what they are exactly, but there's a high percentage of people that will just lose it all and actually be worse off than they were after winning the lottery.
It's a ridiculous number, like 96%. I've worked with 3.
Oh, wow.
And I was brought in on all 3 because of my psych background. I was unsuccessful because it's like having somebody who's only ever walked to the end of the block run a marathon. You're just told you've got to run a marathon. If you can get some type of pause, everybody, if we can pause, if we can create space between our situation and our response, we've got a fighting chance of being able to direct our behavior, kind of get in the steering wheel and have it go to where we want to go. But speed is probably one of our big impediments for that. But it's like you say, there's an energetic, but there's also cognitive. There's a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
There's a lack of support. Mm-hmm. And like finds like. So this is one of the issues when I work with people who are in debt or who have like chronic underperformance in terms of their employment, is they hang around with other people like that.
Yes.
So the world where you're getting your information from typically are people that are at the same energetic frequency. So they're giving you advice and they're offering and mirroring back to you information at your level. So the greatest thing a person can ever do is, for me, I learn also from people that have harder situations from me, and I learn from people that are in vastly elevated situations from me. Both of those, Robert, make me uncomfortable.
Oh, great.
And I'm really aware of that.
Yes.
That asking people to do something that makes them uncomfortable. So when I worked with those 3, and it was 2 in the U.S. and 1 since I come back to Canada, and the first thing I did is I tried to slow their process down. Would you be willing to defer all decisions for 1 year? Wow. So all 3 said yes, and none of them could.
Wow, okay.
So we're in a race, right? Oh, I just got to give my mom this money. Just let me get my kids through school. Let me just do, okay, well, let's skim off this little bit and then go do with those things. And then the rest, would you be willing to defer?
Wow.
They can't. That's one of the things. That's one of the sexy 7, I call them. So in my many years of working in money, I've determined that there are 7 qualities that a person has to have to be able to create and maintain wealth. One of them is the delay of gratification. You have to be able to delay. If you can't delay, it's not going to happen. And we're in a world right now that in no way reinforces that as a valuable behavior. Everything's about speed. But you'll see every single one of your clients who has maintained their wealth has the ability to pause. They have the ability to wait.
That's very true. So
that's one of the 7.
Wow. Can you share another one?
Sure. The other thing that I've seen, so this is anecdotal. This is just now my sexy 7 that I've come up with after working for decades and thousands of people. Number 1 is boundaries. Having healthy boundaries. People that are able to achieve wealth have been able to set boundaries. It is especially, I really specialize in working with women. It is, I'm not saying men don't have these issues, but women in boundaries is particularly problematic. and we've been brought up to not really respect our own boundaries. You can't hold on to money and make the decisions that are necessary to grow money without having some boundaries. You have to be able to own what's yours. You have to be able to see what's somebody else's. You have to be able to respect that it's somebody else's. So that was one of the ones. The second of the 7 was self-regard. You don't even have to think highly of yourself. That's too much. Like, lots of rich people don't have high self-esteem, but they have a certain base self-regard. So so that I'm not setting the bar high here. But if you have no self-regard, you will not be able to hang on to money. You have to have something that says, I matter, having a roof over my head matters, I have some worth. Like, that's why I played around with, what is it that I actually see in these people? And it's self-regard it's just an acknowledgement, a regard for myself. Not that I'm like some great thing. That's why some of the, the online abundance crap that's out there is just it's not realistic, and it's not truthful. You don't have to be saying, when you do positive affirmations, I did this with a group of 75 people once, and I had us do muscle testing to different words.
Yeah.
So, I am wealthy. Well, everybody's arm goes, like, except for 2 people in the room, right?
Yeah.
I am smart. Everybody. The idea is to find language, and this is where we're also perfectly ourselves. We find language that works for us.
That's huge.
Right?
Wow.
Language that works for us. So it's not like, I'm the greatest person, right? Like, some of my affirmations are as simple as, I am strong.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot convince me I'm not strong.
Yes.
I am powerful. I'm not quite as strong too, but I can go strong. So we have to have some self-regard that feels truthful to us. That says, I can own this. I can own that I'm this. I can own that I'm that. The third I told you was delay of gratification. The fourth is the ability to prioritize. So I was fortunate that my mom had this really big thing. It was the beginning of the vision board days, 25-ish, 30-ish years ago, and everybody does these vision boards, and I know why they do them. And I used to lead these fabulous workshops on Saturday morning where we were laden with, and 35 women would come in the room, and I would pump the music up, and we would have, it was just, we had so much fun. And we put these big Bristol board and put all our vision, and that's great. You're like, you hit this level, this high. And then the next day you wake up, you look at your vision board, your husband doesn't look like the guy in there, your kids don't look like those people, you're living in a dump, and there's this house, and then you have this horrible hangover, and you immediately are plunged into insufficiency, which to me is you cannot have wealth and feel insufficient. Can't happen, won't happen, it's unsustainable. So those vision boards have terrible hangovers, in my opinion.
That's powerful.
So we have to be able to say, and when I have people here, I say, if we're going to do goal setting, you get 3 at the most. We'll get everything eventually, but can we just focus on 1 or 2 right now? Let's just try to do that. So also this idea that I can get everything now, that's unrealistic. Wealthy people don't think that. They typically will do one thing at a time.
That's very true.
So there's 4 of the 7.
Wow, I love it. When you speak about those, the vision boards and the affirmations, I've known for quite some time in my life that there was just something missing about that stuff, because there's a part of our minds that doesn't believe it. Right? There's a part of us that goes, yes, I am good enough, or I am worthy, I am, sufficient, I am and that's true in some regards, especially when you're around people, you feel that energetic connection, and that it really is true for that moment, and there is parts of your life that do feel like that. So I think it's very true. But then if there's other aspects, I call it, for simplification, there's two neural networks. One is I have enough, or I am enough, and the other one is I'm not enough. And when you go back to real life, the next day, and you look at, everything doesn't look like the picture, it's very easy for our brain to go, but it's not really true. Even when you're saying it, I am, just like you said, I am powerful. Somebody might think they're the same. I'm powerful and I'm strong, but the way that your brain, your system feels the truth of those words matters entirely. Right? So when I do my work, I have to make sure that it feels correct for the person. That's what they want to believe about themselves, right? Because they might say, like, I'm good enough, regardless. That might be what I think that should be the belief system that would counteract that I'm not good enough. But for them, it might be I matter. And even though I might go, they're not the same. I matter and I'm good enough aren't exactly equal. But for them, that's what they need to believe. So, okay, that's where we're going to go with you. I really, really value, I really appreciate that.
Yes. Again, like you keep coming back to the many threads of sufficiency in the discussion of mental health and money.
Yes.
I mean, it's all the different ways that we can compromise our sufficiency, and it's insidious, and it's sort of socially accepted to degrade ourselves in our sufficiencies, the self-deprecation that is allowed, the type of words we say to one another. But the biggest and most important dialogue that I work with people who I'm trying to change their financial state is in the language that they're using with themselves.
Wow.
And, it may never be. You may never be able to say, I'm good enough. And I can still make you into a multimillionaire, because there are words that will work for you, and we'll just go to the cleanest, most elegant. Like, why would I push you into a whole bunch of trees for you to knock your head over if I can go around those trees here and there and find the unique Robert way? Why would I not find the unique Robert way? And we all have words and associations and thought processes epigenetically, but also from our family background, and then from the words we say to ourselves. So the first thing that I would do is to find language that resonates with me. I was having a discussion yesterday with a therapist about the word catastrophe. So catastrophe, which is a word now bandied about, and we have everything's a war, a catastrophe, or a trauma.
Yeah.
For some people, those words, they feel heard and understood. Their shoulders go down and space is created.
Yep.
For other people, it doesn't resonate. For me, those words just get me stressed out. I'm better off with, wow, that sure was a big rainstorm. Look at all the flooding. I do better with that than it's an atmospheric river. That gets me jangled. So it's again where I want people, we have to honor the words, honor the stories that live in us without letting them control us, but to honor them and give space for them. And every time we give space, we create space for more of what we want.
When people come to you, I'm getting the sense that you're listening, clearly, hopefully you are too, the audience tuning in, that there's a whole bunch more to this individual in front of you than just, their financial goals in front of you. I'm hearing, what are the words that they're using? What are they believing about themselves? What are the unspoken obstacles that are getting in their way? I can only imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably ask some different questions than the average, financial advisor. You probably are asking questions about, like, how are you feeling today? And what are the words in your head that you're saying to yourself? Things like that. I have a feeling that you're nodding, so I'm guessing that's probably accurate.
Probably 50% of the time people say, I didn't expect this appointment to be like this. I have to say.
Do I have to pay for therapy too, Tracy? That's probably part of it. So I guess the other question I have is, we spent some time talking, about people, some of the roadblocks for people that have little, comparatively, that we would consider little. Then the clients that you work with that have a lot, and I imagine some of them may, to some degree, they're probably hitting some of these or all the 7 things, but probably well, let me back up. I bet you if they're hitting all of the seven, what did you call it?
I call
Guidelines?
them the sexy seven.
The sexy
That's
seven.
yeah, the
It has a
sexy
good
for
ring to it.
yeah, because with Sophia, I was like, this is sort of our sufficiency success kind of. These are the things that over time I've been keeping this list and crossing out things and adding for probably 10 years.
I love
Because
that you've done
because
that.
I'm testing it. Okay, is that true? With every client, I'm looking at the chairs where the clients sit. Is this does this fly? And this is the seven that I've seen in everybody that that is doing well. What I consider, like, to me, doing well, being wealthy, is
Yeah.
a state where money is no longer an impediment to you. It doesn't mean you have to be a multimillionaire. It
Right.
just means you have managed to find your relationship with that energy so it works for you and not against you.
Amazing. And then when people, and you find them deficient in one of these areas that are not lining up with the sexy seven, and let's say that they are, fairly, on paper wealthy, or they have enough, it seems like, what sorts of things do you do with them? Or like, how do you help them if they're, um, not sure of exactly what's going on in their lives that are contributing to this? Like, how do you get them to that point for, the self-awareness light bulb to turn up in their mind?
So, I mean, identifying it, seeing if it resonates, my observation, and then, like, we do investment policy statements. But investment policy statements is basically a promise to yourself about how you're going to behave in certain situations. So investment policy statements has numbers, but it's also about behavior. For instance, if my portfolio has 6 successive quarters of depreciation, I will change the manager who's managing it. So, because we use pension style managers. So while you're sane and satisfied and grounded, you make decisions about and promises to yourself about how you'll behave when things are more turbulent. So we can, in essence, also set them up to be for, our other kinds of behaviors, right? Before I give my son any more money, I'm making the commitment that I will call my financial advisor and discuss it with them. Or I will wait a week. Like, I think we can put things into place. So if I see that there's a potential place where someone could shoot themselves in the foot, then I'll try to identify it up front. But it's not me doing something to somebody else. It's them basically having the insight and the willingness to try to have a happier, safer life, because it's safer if we know in advance where we're particularly vulnerable, right? And if I see too many things that aren't in the 7, I won't take them as a client because I've been through this. I'm old. If you don't have boundaries with your kids and no self-regard, and you just have to do everything right away, your money's not going to last, and you're going to think it's my fault, but it's really your behaviors that you come in here with. So I'm able to behave with discernment, and you don't have to be perfect either. But I can see when people are sort of wired okay.
Yeah.
That they got to this position. It's because they do have these things operating from them, and it's exactly what you said earlier. The trick becomes when people inherit or get money that they didn't earn. Because their muscles and their energy, their cognitive muscles and understanding about money, and also their energetic frequency hasn't had time to catch up to the amount of money. I mean, everybody wants to win money and get money. It seems easy. It really isn't.
Yeah, I like the word muscle. If you look at it like you somehow inherit this, 6-pack abs overnight and huge muscles, then your habits and your it's not going to last. Like, you're going to start keep eating your cheeseburgers and whatever it is that you're eating, and you're gonna lose it very quickly. So I like that. It makes a lot of sense to me when you phrase that way. Tracy, thank you. There's so much valuable information here that you're sharing. I feel like I probably could talk to you for hours, and
I could talk for hours too.
Good. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have you back. I'll think of different questions to ask and maybe bring you for a part
I
two
love
later.
this topic. I
I,
love that you've put them together, Robert. I love it. I don't think that it is discussed enough, and we've just done the tip here, right, of all the places where these two areas intersect and affect, and there's a lot of possibility for healing and wholeness and courage, and for people to make forward movement. I think in at least the discussion of it and the affirmation that it's not because you're a bad person that you're having trouble, right?
well, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. And I think you really hit it there that I was, as we were speaking, I was thinking about there are so many different directions that we could go with any one of these topics and do a whole masterclass probably on them because they're so deep. And I think hopefully we've done a good job. Let us know in the comments if we did a good job of sort of outlining some of these questions, and ask certain questions if you're curious. Put them in the comments, and I'll make a little note of these, and then next time we'll have Tracy back in a little bit, maybe if she'll have us. Then we'll ask some of those questions. I think it's very, very important. Tracy, what is like a last tidbit, or for somebody who's tuning in here, if you could leave them with a final message, what would it be?
I would say that you're okay. That if you're listening to this podcast, you're okay. The things that have allowed you the space and the time to be able to listen, it means you're probably someplace where you're not being shot at. It means you have some time. It means you have access to some technology. It means that your heart is directing you forward into the places that are going to help you heal and grow, and that you're exactly where you need to be, and that you have the ability to move forward to get what you need to be happier and wealthier and more whole. That I'm confident of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Tracy, how can people find you?
Well, we are hosting Sophia Wealth Academy March 1st, which is a day of financial literacy that raises money for Dress for Success. So you can pop into sophiawealthacademy.com and take a look at that. We're going to be talking about power. We're having neuropath reset. We're looking at the whole dimensions of money in there. I can be found at Sophia Financial Group, and I think those are probably your two best ways of connecting.
Sounds terrific. I'll, of course, link everything in the show notes so you can get in touch with Tracy, or you can message me and I'll message her on your behalf and stuff like that. So, Tracy, I think, you've shared so many wonderful pieces of knowledge here that I encourage you who's listening in or watching in to go back, watch this again, take a couple minutes and write some things down. And then, ask Tracy some questions, and she's, you can tell
I'd be happy to hear.
Her heart is overflowing with goodness here. I can tell that she will answer, and she'll let you know a direction to go, probably, how to get in contact with her. Sophia is a beautiful company as well, and I took a little peek there. But Tracy, thank you so much for being here. I really, 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 really appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking more with you, of course.
Thank you so much.
And for you tuning in, we'll see you in the next episode.